triple threat TriCast to start our unofficial broadcast strong. Once again, we will be right back for some new analysts and some new casters and some new teams. Don't go far, it'll be right after this.
You are stayed awake last night, 'cause I couldn't close my eyes and see you.
Welcome back to the unofficial broadcast for the 2020 LPL season. My name is still TJ, but I've been joined by some new faces here on the desk, as we've lost both Hyper and Audio, but we've brought in Quirky and Senpai. We've still got Nightstar though, he's hanging on to life, and as we head into Rogue Warriors and Suning, I want to ask the man who's been here through it all, what he thinks about this Suning roster. We were talking a little bit about Maple, and I said, oh, they'll have to fill Maple's shoes after he left the Suning roster. And you said, no, they'll have to fill his Crocs because he didn't have an impact.
Yeah, you could say that those shoes were not very high quality to fill.
Crocs are very high quality, to be fair.
Oh, debatable.
With his Crocs on, ETJ.
Tell me about the Suning roster.
Well, so this season, Maple has moved on, and for people of the Suning fans, this is probably a welcome change because even though we recognize the name and we think of Maple from Flash Wolves, the Suning Maple was a different beast, and he was performing so low that he ended up getting thrown up, tossed into that top lane island, almost banned to the Shadow Realm in some way, just so that he does his own thing up there. And this season they've brought in, they still have Angel, and then they've also added SFM. So this roster has a lot of upside, I would say, to it.
If we're talking about roster changes, though, on the other side, I have to ask you about this, Quirky, because we saw a lot of shakiness in that Rogue Warriors roster during the first game they played. You were particularly excited about Ruby. When he played, it was a clear upgrade for them.
Yeah, so looking back at that previous series from Rogue Warriors, Rogue Warriors, they sort of fell behind pretty much, but bringing in Ruby, they did show a bit more upward spirits, like better plays coming through. So now we know Rogue Warriors are starting with Ruby, so maybe we'll see them get off onto the right foot this time and hopefully bring out their first series win for this season.
Sin, can I go to you for a matchup overview for you? How do you see this going? You were mentioning that Suning were winning in some scrims and you had some faith in them. Does that go all the way? Do they come out on top here?
Holder, who we assume is going to start, who's been a more weak side top laner for the Rogue Warriors, you expect him to be able to show up in that matchup. On the other side, you've got like SFM versus Haro, these two very aggressive style junglers. I really think the top lane is going to be a big swing point, which it hasn't really been in the LPL since last season. And I do think that Suning should come out on top however, we've seen Suning rosters, especially in the past, when we look at that Maple roster, don't always show up to what's written on paper.
So can I then go back to you, Nightstar, about that top lane that Sin's drilled down on? Do you think that comes out for Suning with the new additions?
I think Bin, talent-wise, should have the advantage. One of the numbers that Ibris likes to throw around is the fact that Bin got 40 solo kills during the LDL regular season. That's a lot of solo kills. And if that translates, apparently it translated into scrim bucks, but if that translates to real bucks, then it should be a Suning victory. But again, Sin mentioned it's not translating so far, so I'm a little skeptical.
Quirky, do you cash the scrim bucks?
I cashed the scrim bucks just because SOFM.
Really?
I always loved SOFM. I love him in the jungle. I'd met him previously when he played in the GPL IWCA. Great guy. But hopefully his play has become way better since then. So
I like that you have to slip in where you've met all the pro players? Just kind of
Just gonna name drop that, yeah.
Yeah, just name drop. Yeah, so my best friend SOFM, you know.
That's the thing. He had a really good time in his start of his career on Snake when he was allowed a bit more freedom. He played the likes of the Graves, but as it went on, that roster stagnated more and more. He seemed to become more of a tank player and lost that aggressive edge that he was known so much, especially in those metas where he's supposed to play like Sejuani Java in every game. So I want to see him have a chance to go back to more aggressive junglers. We're seeing a lot more Elise, Lee Sin, and that should be an SFM meta where he's allowed to flourish. And I'm hoping that this Suning roster on paper, all these pieces that can be strong, end up actually cashing in those scrim bucks, as you say, and don't end up being another story like.
Yep.
I'm afraid that I've dropped out a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and call a quick round of predictions, as I didn't catch the end of your point then. Are we all on the board? It sounds like we're all tentatively on board with Suning.
Yeah, I agree. I like the look of this new Suning coming through. If we don't always have to believe Scrim's coming through, but with the addition of Wei Wei and Bin up into that top lane, I feel like they do have the edge, especially against this lackluster sort of Rogue Warriors lineup.
Quickly, Nightstar, if we're calling the Rogue Warriors lineup lackluster, what is their key to victory? Who are you excited for on their side?
Ruby. I mean, Quirky mentioned it before, but I think this is the bright point of their roster. Another thing to throw onto that would be they only had to change Ruby. Everyone else on the roster has built-in synergy. So if they build up what they had from previous split, then we could see a victory here. And that's why I'm actually predicting 2-1 Rogue Warriors.
Really? Okay.
Indeed,
A 2-1 victory from Rogue Warriors. Confident Suning victory from Quirky. I have to go to you for the tiebreaker. Sin, what happens here?
I do think it's going to be a close series, but I can't overlook what's on paper, and maybe I'm going to fall into the same trap as I have done with Nuke Duck and last season's Suning, but I'm going to say Suning 2-1 here. I'm hoping that at least Rogue Warriors look better, however, and I'm hoping we actually get to see a bit of Crazy as he was signed in the...
All right, well, thank you so much. We have another excellent set of casters ahead. It's Imbreds and Greyheart for the call, and we'll head over them to Game 1 of Rogue Warriors versus Suning.
Thank you very much. Excited to be bringing you these games. My name is Stanley Greyheart Barker. As we have already heard, I'm joined by Ibris Daya, and we have got a fantastic matchup on our hands.
Yep. Fantastic matchup indeed between Rogue Warriors and Suning, and immediately we are into pick and ban. The red side bans, of course, from Suning being that omnipresent Akali, that Aphelios, usually paired with a Lucian, but this time around gonna be the Olaf, because Haro still has one of the cleanest Olafs in the entirety of the LPL.
As a result, we're going to see these first picks coming in thick and fast. The Misfortune, the powerhouse, already locked in for Rogue Warriors.
Yeah, Misfortune, of course, very, very strong in that bottom lane, and something to note is that Rogue Warriors, Zhang Wuji, their primary carry in that bottom lane, does not play the Senna himself, so that does mean a safe secure on that very, very high prio Senna Tahm Kench lane for Suning. And the Senna, of course, needs that supportive kind of partner with her to bail her out. That's why you only see her with Thresh and Tahm Kench, really. Not a whole lot of disengage potential herself, but definitely does transition to becoming a legitimate secondary carry threat later on.
Well, we heard Frosk and Doctor in our first game of the series earlier on talking about having to call the fun police. When we see the TK locked in, that's exactly what Suning have done. We're seeing that counterpicked with a Leona, however, so the comparison between these ADCs and supports is quite massive.
Yeah, Leona actually has a fairly decent matchup in Tahm Kench early on, and later especially, because she can of course isolate him or his carry and then lock them down, knock them down before anything really has a chance to materialize, as we do see a set hover, but I do believe that it is currently disabled, so we probably won't see that locked in. However, I'm pretty happy to see the Rise locked in for Ruby, because during the Demacia Cup, Ruby was the shining light of this Rogue Warriors roster, and it was primarily on the Rise.
We're just going to wait to see what our final lock-in coming from Suning for this phase is going to be. Interesting there that you mentioned the Demacia Cup. It's obviously fresh in a lot of our minds at the moment. In that particular cup, it was the Rogue Warrior team who actually performed slightly stronger than Suning did in the groups.
Slightly. They came out of their group in first place, while Suning didn't even make it out themselves. And I do like to point towards Haro and Ruby as the duo that really cemented Rogue Warriors as a threat in that tournament. This jungle mid duo. These two players in particular, if you look at Rogue Warriors on paper, they have arguably bottom 3 players in every role, except for jungle and somewhat mid. I'd say Haro is a top 8 LPL jungler, which is still top half when you have 17 teams in the league, and Ruby's probably around 11th or 12th. Not too much that we've seen from him so far because he is a brand new import to the league, but when it comes down to Rogue Warriors, it is about this jungle mid duo, which makes it even more bamboozling to me that in their first loss versus E-Star, they subbed Ruby out. They had no Ruby for that first game and got thoroughly dismantled by a squad that we had zero expectations for coming into the 2020 split.
Exactly right, Ibris. It's interesting to hear you, as well as our analysts earlier on, using the term on paper, saying that Suning looked stronger. On paper, going to the Massive Cup, that was true as well. Suning were a Pool 2 team, having finished 8th in the summer split. Rogue Warriors were a Pool 4 team, I think, having come 13th. In the end, though, as you said, Rogue Warriors, they made a bit of a turnaround coming through their group. Suning did not. And now we can look and see exactly what these two teams want to do as they try to get their first win on the board here for the spring split of the LPL.
Gonna be that Lee Sin locked in for them here, and it will be interesting to see if Rogue Warriors answer it with something of their own. The Lee Sin has a lot of safety here because they've banned out the Rek'Sai themselves, so Rogue Warriors, they've kind of drafted themselves into a corner where they need the Elise. That has a decent pairing with the Leona Ryze comp just to allow for a bit of a secure pick if they want to go for the Cocoon into the Zenith Blade or the Rune Prison. Besides the Elise, you have a couple of other options, but I think that's the safe option because it is the only jungler left that can actively duel the Lee Sin early. But hey, if you want to play for the Wombo combo team fights, why not take the Jarvan or the Echo?
We are, of course, on the live patch 10.1, so everything that you are getting to enjoy in your placements coming into this new season is exactly what you're going to be seeing here in the LPL. The Aatrox and the Gragas, the final lock-ins for the Rogue Warrior team, and now Suning have got to round out their composition, most likely with the mid laner.
Yeah, so thinking about the mid lane options here into Ryze, LeBlanc is actually a solid pick here. It also was a comfort pick for Angel in Demacia Cup. Zoe is basically the same as LeBlanc. Any comp that either of these fit into, the other one sticks true as well. They both have good pick potential. They both have solid matchups into the Ryze, and he shouldn't be able to contest their roams early. But I do want to draw your attention back to the Gragas because it does create a lot of chaos, denying the Lee Sin engages, getting the Tahm Kench split away from his AD carry in team fights as well, ideally, and actually touching on the Aatrox as well. I've just run through the entire draft here, but hey, why not? In my notes, I have Aatrox down as a budget Mordekaiser, and I think that is true. He's like an AD budget Mordekaiser. They both have a safe lane, they both have scaling, but now with all these nerfs that have come to him, he's not quite that teamfight threat that Mordekaiser does scale into.
We've got a couple of compositions that are almost entirely full of carries. Only 3 champions sort of strike out to me as a champion that can't pretty much solo carry the game if it gets ahead. So which lanes do we have to most specifically look towards?
Right, so regardless of champion matchup, I still want to look at Haro and Ruby from the side of Rogue Warriors just because these guys were the driving force behind a lot of the success that this team had in the Demacia Cup. And yes, they got completely outclassed in the 2v2 by that peak Xiaolong Bao and Xiaohu duo that really did stomp through that entire group. That entire knockout stage of the Demacia Cup. I know you're an RNG fan, so you're probably pretty happy about that, Greyheart. But looking at Suning, actually, I am pretty intrigued to see my boy SOFM take his Lee Sin to the next level because, of course, when this guy was the captain of Snake, when he was making these aggressive early invades and really driving the ship that was the insane early game that Snake had come to be known for, it was on the back of this. But I also want to draw your attention to Sword Art on the Tahm Kench because Tahm Kench, very macro-oriented support, has a very, very wide map influence, largely thanks to the Abyssal Voyage. And Sword Art, cerebral player, shot caller, veteran as they come for the LPL, and you're looking for him to guide these younger, more experienced players like Bin in the top lane, who, by the way, is matched up against Crazy, who didn't play all that much for Rogue Warriors so far, of course. The man sitting on the SKT bench for so long just come over to China alongside Ruby in the mid lane and didn't have a huge showing on the Demacia Cup, instead playing second fiddle to Holder, who has been a surprisingly solid weak side top laner.
Well, we have seen the full drafts. We have talked about how these two compositions are going to match up against each other. All that remains is to get onto the Rift. This is my first cast of the decade, and I am excited to be back in the best region in the world. It is the LPL, and we are going to be watching Rogue Warriors taking on Suning. Ibris, our analyst, had a bit of a split opinion about who was going to be taking the series. What are your feelings?
I think that if Suning can get their stuff together, this is a good time to demonstrate that they are a legit contender for that top seed. Especially consider the fact that I had in my power rankings, and I think everyone else's power rankings, Suning ranked quite a bit higher than Easter, who did convincingly shut down this Rogue Warriors lineup. However, Haro, Ruby, they could do their own thing, and Crazy especially I want to watch because he's such an unproven potential here in China versus Bin, who is legit the definition of potential. This guy got 40 solo kills in the LDL this year, and he is a monster, but tilted off the face of the earth in the Demacia Cup. But here's an invade.
Sword out, getting the tongue lashes down onto Lay's gonna manage to get the slow SOFM already invading down onto this red buff. This is not the start that the Gragas will have wanted, really delayed on his start.
Hey, it's that early game aggression coming through for the jungler of Suning that I did mention. And I do want to point out that Tahm Kench, when he starts Oracle Lens level 1, gets control of that first bush bot lane, actually very oppressive into a lot of these melee support matchups, and can reliably bully out some of these weaker at level 1 supports, like the Leona, to a lesser extent the Nautilus and the Thresh as well. But mostly Leona gets completely shut out until later on, but SOFM may be biting off a little bit more than he can chew.
Well, he's going to get himself spotted out by the Vision, being put down by Ruby. He's going to let the Sonic Strike go straight over the wall, forcing the flash out of the Rogue Warriors mid laner.
Damn, that was a bit close and a bit overzealous from Ruby here. I thought it was SFM getting a bit greedy, but with no one nearby and the disrespect on a bubble connecting there into the resonating strike, a solid chunk out onto Ruby, a forced back, a forced flash, a forced TP, and one very vulnerable rise for the foreseeable future.
Not the start that you want on this scaling machine gun here in the mid lane. SOFM, however, already making impact. We talked about just what Harrow can do. Now SOFM trying to show what he can do here in the LPL.
2 red buffs secured for Lee Sin is about as beautiful a start as you can get. Combine that with the fact he got an already fairly gankable mid laner's flash. It's a pretty good going for the jungler of Suning. But, well, we're talking about junglers, and here's the other one, Rogue Warriors Harrow in the top.
Harrow looking to come up, try and help Crazy out. Bin looks to have got himself caught between a rock and a hard place. Isn't even going to be able to use that flash effectively. Eventually, Harrow comes over the wall, securing first blood for Rogue Warriors.
All right, respect to Harrow, because not only did he do the flash body slam perfectly, but he did it over one of the hardest walls to flash in the entire game. No one really expects the pre-boots Predator gank from the Gragas, but it's still pretty damn devastating, as you just witnessed. And again, we're seeing Bin, super hyped, rookie top laner, super young, super unrefined, but goddamn talented, overextending, getting caught out. And I hope this isn't par for the course for Suning and their season ahead, but this all-star top laner not looking too hot right now.
Harrow is still sticking around in the top half of the opposition jungle, maybe looking for a dive onto Bin, or maybe just going to be stealing away these Krugs. I think he's still a little worried that SOFM could be lurking around, though.
I mean, if there ever was a time to gank a Mordekaiser, it would be before level 6. Credit to Bin, though. He maintained his flash after that first play. Not that you ever want to give a kill over to an Aatrox lane early, because it's kind of hard to do that unless you massively misplay. End of the day, though, Bin, he's in an alright position. I do expect Harrow to reset fairly soon for his Predator boots. That being said, the last time we saw Harrow on the Gragas, he didn't recall for a fair amount of time to actually get those.
Meanwhile, Lee Sin just completing this triple buff clear that he's getting on the first rotation, having already gone back to pick himself up his jungle item. Having a slightly slower start after that earlier gank, not able to get the kill, but has got himself a significant CS lead over the opposition Harrow.
And I'm looking for this bot lane from Suning in particular to get a lead and start transitioning it around the map. And yes, Harrow could visit these solo lanes to bail out the Rise, to continue to apply the pressure onto Bin's Mordekaiser as well. But I want to see some action in the bot lane. Tahm Kench, a little bit hard to gank, especially early on, but you have a Leona, you have the only cleanse being on that Zoe, and I want this bot side to explode so that we can then see Suning's bot lane actually start to influence the map. Get these lanes out of lane contention and start influencing the map with the bot lane. Unlock your Mordekaiser, unlock your Zoe as well, so that they can play the 1-3-1, and maybe we'll see some macro rotations. But here's an objective, and it is being started up.
First Dragon is started by SOFM, and despite the vision being picked up by Harrow, I do believe that Lee Sin is going to be able to complete this one. This is going to be the Cloud Drake secured for Suning. That, of course, does mean we're not going to be seeing the Cloud Dragon rising up in our Elemental Rift later on. Does mean that we're down to 3 possibilities, one of which is Infernal, which could be such a massive boost if either team could get that soul.
Respect to Crazy for doing what top laners this season should do. As soon as you get lane power, you just push it in. You try and break the enemy top laner's freeze, and if you can't, you just walk around to the enemy jungle, counter-jungling them. Of course, the vision on SOFM bot lane meant that the Rogue Warriors lineup did realize that the Lee Sin was on the opposite side of the map, and that did unlock the Raptors as a viable clear for this Aatrox, who has just teleported back into lane.
Meanwhile, just going to see level 6 being picked up on both of these top and mid laners. So some more interesting plays. Meanwhile, the Zenith Blade is going to catch on to the Tahm Kench. Does have his flash and exhaust available. Not going to have to burn either of them, just losing half his health as he gets himself back to the safety of his turret.
Yeah, Sword Art just kind of chilling out there. Not too much the Tahm Kench can recall for here. Of course, he's not as relying on the boots as some of these other supports really are for impacting the map. I would also like to just note the fact that Sword Art should be looking to make those proactive rotations, but my main concern for Suning is that they have a Tahm Kench center that can influence the map. They have a Zoe that split pushes remarkably well, a Mordekaiser that is legit the definition of a split pusher, and a Lee Sin that also influences pretty much every lane at once thanks to how mobile he is. Suning, in the Demacia Cup, they drafted 1-3-1 comps, Fiora, Ryze, that kind of thing, and didn't play 1-3-1. They did that kind of LPL monkey style that we saw from IG FPX in their first LPL game of the season, which is just draft a split push comp and force 5v5 after 5v5 after 5v5, and that proved to be Sunning's undoing when it came down to their Demacia Cup group stage exit.
They certainly had a tougher group. I mean, we've talked about how Rogue did so much better than Suning. Suning did have the tougher group, but Rogue Warriors, they still came out and won games where Suning did not. We'll see whether that remains the truth today. Of course, in the LPL spring split so far, Rogue Warriors, they have already played one series, having lost that one, so they are 0-1, right at the bottom of the standings at the moment. Suning, this is their first showing for the LPL spring.
Good application of pressure here, as you do have SOFM going for the invade, backed up by Angel. This roaming 2v2 that we mentioned back in Champion Select, it's actually gonna really do a number on the Rogue Warriors mid lane duo, and that is because the Ryze is still on the back foot relative to the Zoe. Yes, he's ahead in farm, but here's the Lee Sin still influencing the map, however.
Looking to try and get a first potential kill already using that Dragon's Rage kick. Is going to secure a little bit of damage on the Crazy, but it's Ben who is so low, and SOFM is leaving him for dead as the Realm Warp is going to come on up. Ben is lost completely, giving up his second kill of the game. Crazy passing that one over to Ruby, who appeared with the Realm Warp, and now it's going to be a Rift Herald on the table for Rogue Warriors.
And you need that assassination there before the Ryze and the gang can rotate with the Realm Warp. You had to instantly drop the Aatrox. He didn't even have to flash. Suning just getting too aggressive there. It blew up in their face. And SOFM, this happened so many times on Lean In Gaming. This happened so many times on Snake, and it's still proving to be his undoing. Bin, their rookie top laner, his trial by fire has already begun, and he has dropped for the second time in the first 10 minutes alongside a Rift Herald for the side of Rogue Warriors.
Yeah, Suning trying to get some of that gold back by pushing down turret lanes in the bot lane. However, they're down on CS in almost every lane, apart from Zoe in the mid lane. They've just lost that Herald, as you mentioned, Ibris, and they're going to be losing yet more turret plates wherever Harrow puts that down.
Yeah, pre-14-minute Herald is really solid for Rogue Warriors. They actually have a massive priority on this objective relative to other teams in the league. Usually they trade the Drake or a couple of kills bot side in order to secure 2 Heralds in the early game. My main issue is Rogue Warriors, macro-wise, tend to fall apart at the 16, 17, 18-minute mark. They trade evenly for the early game. Even versus RNG in Demacia Cup, they were doing damn good until they ran out of Rift Heralds to take. And then the game fell apart. Literally, 16, 17, 18-minute mark. The only correlation I can see there is that there's no more Rift Herald from that point onwards after they've taken 2, and everything just blows up. It's like once that objective is off the board, they forget how to play the map, and that makes me concerned when they draft Aatrox Ryze, who are so macro-reliant when it comes to navigating these late game skirmishes.
Yeah, very valid points there. And one of the things that worries me slightly is that I'm not entirely sure that based on what you're saying there, they're going to be comfortable playing around the Baron dances. We've already seen once today just how poor decisions around the Baron can really, really affect you, almost costing the EDG lineup in their second game up against V5. And then they were able to pull through, but it was a little bit shaky for a while. Just as it's a bit shaky now for Angel, who's being chased down by Harrow, has to burn his own flash. No spell thief available this time. Meanwhile, Lei catching the Zenith Blade onto SOFM has got the misfortune around as well, trying to get some damage down, but no double ups today. Instead, it's going to be a tasty Mountain Dragon.
Zoning out the enemy jungler and blowing the Zoe's flash. Yes, he is cleansed, so there's a layer of protection, but this should still be a Rogue Warriors Drake. TP coming in.
Bin has opted into the fight. Here we go. Aatrox starts the recall, but decides to cancel it instead, opting into a potential 5v5. Lei is going so low. As we do see, it's going to be the Infernal Dragon coming to the Rift. It opens up all sorts of extra areas for the teams to walk around. Lisa picking up a kill onto the Aatrox. Now here comes Sword Art, trying to get a slow, possibly onto the Misfortune. Look at the health on Lei. As the Sleepy Troll bubble lands, it's going to be the paddle star to secure Leona's kill onto Leona. SOFM gobbled up by Sword Art to keep him alive. And so far, this fight has gone wildly in favor of Suning Gaming, who are chasing down yet more kills. Ruby completely stuck. The massive pull from Mordecai. The burn damage is there. Bin picks up one. Zoe gets the second. And that is going to be Angel cleaning up what is a delayed ace for the Suning lineup.
A delayed, clean ace for the Suning lineup. They get the kills, they get the cleanup, and I was goddamn hyped for that Sleepy Trouble bubble snipe. Angel coming up huge there for the side of Suning. The start to that fight wasn't too hot with the Mordekaiser delayed TP into the Leona attempted kidnap. Oh, really great turnaround from the side of Suning. I'm in awe as how they executed that, because look, okay, Leona's out of the fight pretty much already. Bin's just casually missing every spell on Mordekaiser, and the MF ult was uninterrupted, but it was angled poorly. Suning just backed out of it. Really good play by SFM there. Lee Sin's so much stronger than the Aatrox at this point of the game. Basically decided for him to not play League of Legends. Yeah, there's the snipe that I mentioned and that you were, I guess, pretty hyped about too. And this dive was clean, especially Sword Art coming in to save his jungler.
Well, what a turnaround. As the Mountain Dragon goes down in Rogue Warriors' favor, Suning bounce back, pick themselves up 5 kills, take a gold lead, and perhaps most importantly, 3 kills over to Angel on this Zoe, who is now fed as all hell.
Damn it, I said that Rogue Warriors' game Rogue Warriors. Rogue Warriors.